So a lot of you out there have been asked, especially if you're just recent grads or whether you are like switching careers or whatever, wherever you are, you've been asked your whole life, what do you want to be when you grow up? And that question used to make sense back in the olden days, a long time ago when jobs didn't change that much, when things were much more stable. Well, today we know that that's not true. Jobs are shifting right now, right in front of us. And so what we need to think about is a new question. And the question I want everyone to think about is, what problem do you want to solve? What's the problem that spins in your head? And it doesn't have to be a social problem. It could be any kind of problem. It could be, if you watch Shark Tank, everyone who walks into that tank is solving a problem. So what's the problem that you want to solve? And then the second question that you should be thinking about is, how do you want to solve it? How do you want to take your experiences, your gifts, your talents, and solve that problem? And so it's important to think about how you take on that problem, because there's a million ways to solve a problem, and your passions and your guidance and the way you want to solve a problem matters, right? Because if you wanted to solve climate change, for example, people might think that you need to be a scientist or a researcher, but in reality, you might be a brilliant photographer. And the way you can solve climate change is by going out and documenting climate change, right? And then the last question I want you to think about is, what do you need to know to solve that problem? What are the skills, the abilities, the knowledge you need to have to solve that problem? And where can you start developing those knowledge, skills, and abilities? And the reason why this is important is because it opens up the world not to think about jobs, but to think about experiences and skills you can build. Because if you wanted to solve climate change through photography and you realized that you needed to be a writer to do that because you wanted to write blogs about it, then you probably should find work that helps you develop your writing skills. And it doesn't matter what industry it is, because you are going to be developing those skills. And so for me, when I got to understand it this way, when I graduated from graduate school at Arizona State University, there was no Google. So I couldn't plan to work at Google when I graduated from graduate school, right? So if you think about that, what company, what areas are going to exist in 15 years or 20 years that don't exist today? So it's more important to build the skills, the knowledge, the abilities that you need. So you could be using this time to develop wherever you are in that pipeline, whether you know what problem you want to solve or whether you know how your passions and skills align with that problem, or you need to find out what skills you need to develop and how you can start developing those skills. And ASU is a great place to either, use the career services or go take a class or find the experts. ASU is, if nothing, just a bunch of experts that can help you figure out what it is that you need to know to solve the problems you're passionate about, right? So that's what you could be spending your time on. That's one. The second thing that you could be spending your time on right now as you think about the future is start lining up with people. Start figuring out your tribe, the people that are passionate about the same things that you're passionate about. Reach out to them. I can't tell you how many missed opportunities alumni might have when I don't get an email from someone that says, hey, my name is Tammy and I live in Phoenix and I'm also interested in education and I want to work in the education and technology space. I'd love 15 minutes of your time to talk. I'm going to say yes. Most people are going to say yes. Most people are going to say absolutely. So how you provide value to the people you reach out to is really critical. So we can spend a whole day talking about the skills around networking. And so this is a great opportunity. And I know I got only a couple of minutes left and I'm going to be able to answer any questions, or feel free to reach out to me either on my YouTube channel or on LinkedIn or Twitter. But understand that every crisis is an opportunity. And what we're faced with is a completely new future. And you, whether you are just graduating from school or whether you're still in school and going to graduate next year, you just graduated a couple years ago, you have to understand that right now where we are is we're facing a bunch of transformation that's happening. And this is a great opportunity to think about what that transformation looks like, to think about the skills that you need and how you want to take on those problems. And I'll give you my personal problem, right? So I'm a first-generation American, born and raised in Hell's Kitchen, New York. I grew up with a single mother. I grew up on welfare and food stamps. And the problem that I'm trying to solve is based on an assumption, because I could either assume that I was able to graduate from college and go to graduate school and work for Google for 14 years. I did those things because I'm a super genius and I have a 500 IQ, and that's what my wife thinks, I think. Or there are millions of students who are just like me who don't have the same opportunity or might not have that luck or might not have the access that they need. And so the problem that I'm trying to solve is to provide that access, to provide those opportunities. And again, that problem can be solved a million different ways. It can be solved through education in K-12. It can be solved through programs that support students in K-12. It could be supported in college and teaching kids like me how to create social capital. It can be solved in a business world by creating inclusion and diversity programs that focus on imposter syndrome, for example. So there's a million ways to solve that problem. And so I'm trying to take it on from lots of different ways. And so for me, that problem is going to, probably until they put me in the ground, is going to be something that I'm going to continuously focus on from lots of different angles. And so find that passion, find that thing that the problem that you want to solve, and then think about how you want to solve it. And then develop the skills. This is a great opportunity to narrow down that problem and the skills that you need to develop to focus specifically on that skill.